Donald Trump, not so unpopular throughout the world. CNN and the media are broken, but so is government and the people who work there. It's time for some hard truth about airlines, government, and customer service. All that coming up next on The Michael Newman Show.
Access denied.
I did not go.
Don't tase me, bro. No. Don't tase me.
No.
Ow!
What difference at this point does it make?
I feel terrible.
How is that okay?
I know words. I have the best words.
I am acting here.
I'm mouthy!
I've got a lot of things on my plate.
This isn't food!
This is garbage.
Shut up. Because I think that's what you are entitled to.
Now you see that evil will always triumph because good is dumb.
This is not funny.
Hello, everybody. Michael Newman Show is on. Hope you're having a great day out there. Please go to michaelnewmanproductions.com. If you do that, then you can get links for today's show. You can contact me via email. You can check out all my social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. My Twitter handle is Newmaniac. And, of course, check the services link to show you the sort of business services that I do. And, of course, most importantly, support the show. Big blue icon there on the website that says support. You just click that. It tells you about Patreon, what it is and what it does. And then you can go to my Patreon site. There's a link right there, and you can support the show for as little as $1 a month. All right. So what's happening? How about good news? That'd be a nice change, wouldn't it? That is the sound of Poland. That is right. Chanting USA, USA, USA as Donald Trump gets up to give a speech. Actually, they had just finished that particular clip. Just finished like a ceremonial thing. There was a band playing. It was probably the Polish national anthem. Him and the president of Poland was there. They were, with their wives and the whole big thing. And as soon as the song ended, the chant wasn't about the local government. It wasn't about nationality. The chant was USA, USA, USA. So thank you, Polish people. Later, during Trump's prepared remarks, the crowd repeatedly interrupted the speech with another chant. Donald Trump, Donald Trump. That's right. It sounded like this. Part of the statement here was cut off, so I will start it for Mr. Trump and let him finish. The story of Poland
is the story of a people who have never lost hope, who have never been broken, and who have never, ever forgotten who they are.
Now it starts picking up here. Pretty deafening.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Such a great honor.
It is a great honor, especially in Europe, a place that is supposed to be so anti-American, anti-Trump that he would. Matter of fact, they were talking about banning him from Europe, from Great Britain. Are you kidding me? Well, he said some things that we think are uncouth, and it almost turned our white wigs black. I don't know that they said that, but they should have. That would have been a good one. I don't know who it would have been against, but it certainly wouldn't have been a good one. So thank you once again, Poland. And it's nice to hear some chants from people that are, outside the mainstream. Or, well, I don't see outside the mainstream, maybe inside the mainstream, because, Europe has a tendency to be a bit socialistic, just like our mainstream media and a lot of left in this country. But to see that the people, the actual people that are there, recognize that America is still a good place, and freedom could be coming back to the world if we hold fast and we fight against the tyranny of the media and the left. Well, maybe we could just win this war. President Donald Trump had some heavy criticism for Barack Obama during a news conference in Poland yesterday for what Trump said was a weak reaction to Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. election. Now, this whole Russia conspiracy thing is literally that, a conspiracy. And there have been, well, any conspiracy is going to have certain newts of truth into it or certain pieces of evidence that point in certain directions. That's how they get started. That's how they get going. They have to have some validity somewhere, and that's what this reporter is going to talk about, and that is why don't you just admit that it was Russia that did all this hacking and got into our election system?
Well, I think it was Russia, and I think it could have been other people in other countries. Could have been a lot of people interfered. I said it very simply. I think it could very well have been Russia, but I think it could well have been other countries, and I won't be specific, but I think a lot of people interfere. I think it's been happening for a long time. It's been happening for many, many years. Now, the thing I have to mention is that Barack Obama, when he was president, found out about this in terms of if it were Russia, found out about it in August. Now, the election was in November. That's a lot of time. He did nothing about it. Why did he do nothing about it? He was told it was Russia by the CIA, as I understand it. It was well reported. And he did nothing about it. They say he choked. Well, I don't think he choked. I think what happened is he thought Hillary Clinton was going to win the election, and he said, let's not do anything about it. Had he thought the other way, he would have done something about it. So he was told in early August by presumably the CIA that Russia was trying to get involved or meddling pretty strongly with the election. He did nothing about it. The reason is he thought Hillary was going to win. And if he thought I was going to win, he would have done plenty about it. So that's the real question, is why did he do nothing from August all the way to November 8th? Why did he do nothing? His people said he choked. I don't think he choked.
Meaning he did it on purpose. That's the insinuation that Donald Trump is giving here. There's a couple points there that I think are important. First, a lot of people interfere. That's part of what he said there. A lot of people, whether they be individuals, whether they be political parties, media members, or other governments, meaning China or Iran or somebody like that, that would certainly like to be able to put the feather in their cap of controlling the United States election system. And it's not something new. It's been going on for quite a little while. And that opens two sort of scenarios here, because Barack Obama heard about it, right? And he did nothing. These are the facts. He heard about it and he did nothing. So you could either say he did nothing because he figured it didn't matter anyway and he wanted Hillary Clinton to win, and he didn't want to upset the apple cart and try to and insinuate something that could invalidate the election of Hillary Clinton. Could be that, or it could be that they get those reports all the time and it's no big deal. Has anybody thought of that? Anybody asked that question? How often do presidents, maybe during election periods of time, could have been George W. Bush, it could have been George H.W. Bush, could have been Reagan, could have been Clinton, could have been, well, certainly was Obama. How often do they get reports from the intelligence services, CIA, NSA, all those different people? How often do they get a report that says that there is a foreign entity, whether it be Russia, China, or some hacker, that is making headway and doing something with our election system? How often do they get that report? Because if it happens all the time, right? If it happens on virtually every election, or it happens on a daily basis that, hey, somebody's trying to break into whatever, then it means it's no big deal. It means it's routine. And it means that any hacking, any interference that may have come from the Russians didn't matter in the first place, so says Barack Obama. How many times do presidents get that notification? I would like that question answered, please. Then she goes on and really is sort of trying to push this thing home. All of your intel agencies said it was Russia.
I heard it was 17 agencies. I said, boy, that's a lot. Do we even have that many intelligence agencies, right? Let's check it. And we did some very heavy research. It turned out to be 3 or 4. It wasn't 17. And many of your compatriots had to change their reporting, and they had to apologize, and they had to correct. Now, with that being said, mistakes have been made. I agree. I think it was Russia, but I think it was probably other people and or countries. And I see nothing wrong with that statement. Nobody really knows. Nobody really knows for sure. I remember when I was sitting back listening about Iraq, weapons of mass destruction, how everybody was 100% sure that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. And guess what? That led to one big mess. They were wrong, and it led to a mess. So it was Russia, and I think it was probably others also, and that's been going on for a long period of time. But my big question is, why did Obama do nothing about it from August all the way to November 8th? He did nothing about it, and it wasn't because he choked.
You know, when this whole conspiracy theory of Russia came about, then we heard the 17 different intelligence agencies. That has been one of those little factoids. It's been out there for an awful long time. Way back in the days when I used to do a radio talk show, and that was one of my first arguments. Well, wait a second here. You've got all these intelligence agencies that say this definitely happened. Every one of them, we know it happened. Have you been wrong before? And this is all coming from the left, mind you, that they're saying, well, our intelligence agency said this is happening, so it's got to be right. All 17 of them, everybody thought it was happening. We have to look into this. Okay. What was your reaction to intelligence when George W. Bush said that there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Well, it's garbage. They're lying to you. Bush lied. People died. And by the way, in that instance, it wasn't just intelligence agencies from the United States. It was intelligence agencies virtually unanimously stating this from around the world. Every country that had an intel agency that was in the know was saying, yep, there's something there. We got to go after it. Every one of them. And yet they were all wrong. So it's a good possibility that intel agencies can be wrong. And if that factoid is true, and we know the fact that the news, the fake news and the tweets and those sorts of things had zero effect on the outcome of the election, might it be that this entire Russian conspiracy theory simply had no impact and isn't real? The evidence of Russian interference in our elections and its impact on how people voted and the outcome of the election is virtually nothing. As a matter of fact, it is nothing. It's less than nothing. There is no there. In fact, there is no crime. No one's ever said, here's the crime that we're looking for, so let's go after it. Let's go find out who did said crime. Right? If there's a murder, you've got a body, and then you have to go find the person that committed the murder because you know you have one fact at least that a crime has taken place, that a murder has happened. In this instance, there is no crime to point a finger at other than for the left. Hillary Clinton didn't win the election. That's the crime. And in fact, they have figured out who the attacker was. They have figured out who is guilty of this crime. And that is you and me and anyone who voted for Donald Trump. Now, some tough words were also shared out there. Donald Trump met with the Polish president today at the Royal Castle in Warsaw. Trump later questioned if you could really call it a castle because he's got bigger buildings. No, he didn't. I just threw that in there. That didn't happen. Although, behind closed doors, he was probably thinking, it's all right. How many golf courses you got? And I'm not royalty. I just made a lot of money and built things and owned things. And I'm worth 1,000 times more than you. Anyway, Trump later questioned if the West has the will to survive in a landmark speech. And I think that's a very important question. He always is on the international stage, far much more than Barack Obama or even George W. Bush. President Donald Trump has been saying some things that need to be said. When he had the speech in front of the Arab leaders, that was a hell of a speech. And he really came out against some things and stirred some things in that room. And you could kind of tell by the faces of the people there that no other president has done, at least since Ronald Reagan. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. That was roundly ridiculed by the left in this country. And then suddenly, a couple of years later, there is no more wall and the Soviet Union collapses. So maybe being a tough guy does work for freedom. He said that North Korea would face consequences if they continued. Of course, as president, you can't say what those consequences are, but I would imagine they would be fairly severe. And God knows what would happen if North Korea got off a weapon, nuclear tipped, headed towards Alaska. That could spark some things that are crazy. Although in real terms, attacking the United States in that way, if you're North Korea, may not really be considered that big a deal to the United States. Yeah, it's going to be a devastating attack, certainly. But the United States is so much more powerful, so many orders of magnitude more powerful than North Korea, that we could simply take them out. We could have an action. We could answer the call to duty so quickly and so roundly that the impact of this nuclear attack would not be felt anywhere else. It would stop right there. If it were Russia that did it, Russia is a very powerful country. If it was China that did it, very powerful country. And they would have some way to back themselves up beyond that one weapon, whereas North Korea doesn't. They don't have that kind of power. The United States, on the other hand, does. And one nuclear weapon will not take us out by any means. We're too vast as far as geographically, and we're far too powerful as far as militarily. So coming after the United States is just a super bad idea. As we've been called the policemen of the world. We're not. We're the soldiers of the world. Our military is bigger than the entire rest of militaries in the world combined. Don't mess with the USA. That's all I'm saying. Trump hit Russia later for his destabilizing activities in the Ukraine and elsewhere, and its support for hostile regimes, including Syria and Iran. So he kind of wants to get Russia back on board here, and he argued that Vladimir Putin should join the U.S. and its allies in the fight against violent extremism. See, Russia's kind of pulled back. They said, well, you didn't pick up this phone call and you shot down a Syrian plane, and we're unhappy about that, so we're breaking off ties in regards to Syria. That's what they said. Okay. I don't know how well that's going to work for you, and frankly, breaking off ties in that way is much more provocative action. You're just lucky the United States has a whole hell of a lot of patience, because that can turn very, very badly for you and your people very quickly. So the power and the might of the United States is on parade, and the freedom that the United States represents is on parade in Poland. That is good news. That is a respite from 8 years of President Barack Obama, who constantly went on the road bashing the country that he was president of, bashing you and me for our lives and our lifestyles and our hard work, saying that we're awful people. So it's a nice respite. It's nice to know that somebody in the White House has our back. And you know what? Things from an economic sector aren't looking too bad either. I don't usually get into this stuff, but just a quick couple of little tidbits for you. CNBC reports job creation in the private sector tailed off significantly in June, in another sign that the economy is getting closer to full employment, right? Companies added 158,000 positions for the month, strong, but still below the 230,000 that was reported in May. So that the fact that we didn't add as many jobs is actually kind of a good thing. It looks like we're sort of topping out on unemployment. Of course, that's what economists say. I think it's kind of garbage. I think there's still a bunch of people that are out of work out there, and a bunch of people that haven't been looking for work for a long time. So you can take from those numbers what you wish, but it is a good sign that we're adding real jobs. Now, Foxconn, big company, big Taiwanese company, could be bringing 10,000 jobs to southeastern Wisconsin. That's right. A group is considering bringing 10,000 jobs to southeastern Wisconsin. The company has a massive presence. The firm also says that it's considering putting developments in Michigan or other states. And who are we talking about here? We're talking the manufacturer that puts together the iPhone and sharp high-definition televisions. Big manufacturing. Foxconn is the company. And that's truly amazing. What, the iPhone could be made in the United States again? Does that sound like something that President Donald Trump said might happen? Yeah. And how about oil? I found this to be interesting as well. It's from the New York Times. At a twist that would have been unthinkable only 2 years ago, the oil tanker that arrives in China today may be carrying crude that left South Texas from Corpus Christi instead of Saudi Arabia. It's been banned. The sale or export of oil has been banned for more than 40 years. It's virtually impossible for that period of time for any oil company to export to anybody but Canada. But the United States energy policy changed. It actually changed on the Obama administration, slowly started to loosen the bans, and Congress finally ended it in late 2015 in a compromise that also extended tax credit for renewable energy. So it was a bargaining chip. Republicans were pushing this thing probably behind the scenes and probably for their big oil buddies. You bastards. But finally they got it so we can export oil. And guess what? We've got tons of oil to export now, and we can put it on the market, and we can drive those oil prices down, and we can have really good, high-paying jobs for people here in the United States, all the while undercutting the base of money that funds the terrorist nations on the planet. If we can drive down the price of oil significantly by creating a glut on the market, then guess what? The Saudi Arabias of the world, the Irans of the world, the Iraqs of the world aren't going to have the money to continue their crap for much longer. They're not going to be as powerful as they once were, simply because we're taking away their only manufacturing base. It's the only business that they have in the Middle East is oil. That's it. Have you ever got a Saudi Arabian car? No, they buy cars from everybody else and have them gold-plated, those bastards. But that's got to make some people, including Barack Obama, pretty unhappy. The United States is significantly profiting from oil. Oh, and it happened under a precious President Obama. He's a traitor, they say. Well, I don't know that they say it. They may think it sometimes. I hope. Wouldn't that be nice? I wouldn't say it to your face, though, because then they would be racist. Why have these environmental regulations and things been stifling our oil? Well, it's global warming. They don't want oil. They don't want fossil fuels. They want to get rid of it. And it's now become this religion of people that absolutely buy into it, that as soon as you start up your car, the planet Earth is going to explode and burn to a cinder. And there are different sides to this. I see a lot of conservatives sort of giving in and saying, well, it could be happening. Look, it's not happening. And the science that surrounds global warming, the science that surrounds most environmentalism, especially the sustainable movement, is not science at all. It is dogma from a religious sect, a religious sect, mind you, that hates humanity. And it's been proven time and time again that these scientists are wrong. Now, that's the important part about global warming, quote unquote, science. When they call you a denier, you're a denier of science. No. I am not a denier of science. I am a denier of scientists, especially scientists that like global warming. Why? Because they're always wrong. And many times they know they're wrong and they're lying about it. A new study has found adjustments made to global surface temperature readings by scientists in recent years are, quote, totally inconsistent with published incredible U.S. and other temperature data. Totally inconsistent. Thus, it is impossible to conclude from the 3 published GAST data sets that we are setting record warming. You know, we've heard all these stories, the AP, Yahoo News, all these places will print these stories almost immediately. They say it's the hottest summer ever. Oh my God, it's so hot. It's the hottest on record. It's not true. This peer-reviewed study tried to validate current surface temperature data sets managed by NASA, NOAA, and the UK's Met Office. Okay, we're talking big-time government numbers here. NASA, NOAA, and the UK Met Office. All of which made adjustments to raw thermometer settings. Skeptics of man-made global warming have criticized these adjustments. The new study doesn't actually question the adjustments themselves, but notes that nearly all of them increase the warming trend. Basically, cyclical patterns and earlier report data have very nearly been adjusted out of temperature readings taken from weather stations, buoys, ships, and other sources. In fact, almost all surface temperature warming adjustments cool the past temperatures to set warming records now. They're doing it on purpose so they can have that. They can have the media go out there and send that message. This is the warmest ever. Well, it's the warmest ever now because you changed the data previously, and now we have no context. It's simply not true. All claim. Look, until you can come up with credible scientists with credible science, and then you can actually show me in the world where these things are actually happening, then all claims of global warming are simply false and have to be questioned at all points in time, and certainly shouldn't be used to make public policy. And we can say this because these claims have been proven wrong time and time and time again. But credibility doesn't seem to matter a whole lot on the global warming side. Speaking of warmest years ever, Greenland, by the way, just set a record for coldest July temperatures ever reported in the Northern Hemisphere. -33°C in July. How about you move from Greenland to Maui, right? Wouldn't that be better? Think so. Plus Greenland's, oh no, that's Iceland. Iceland is the land of ice, but it's also a land of volcanoes. They're literally sitting on a volcano. There's lava like 4 feet under their feet, and virtually all their power is geothermal because lava's right there, and why not just use the hot fire under your feet? Or you could move, because eventually hot fire comes to the surface and burns your ass. All right, let's talk a little CNN again, because this story isn't going away. Several anchors and reporters at CNN have had their home addresses published and have received threats of rape and other violence in the wake of the story that they published. They investigated this guy, Han Asolo, which I say it better. I'm not going to say it how it's actually spelled. It's Han Asolo. And people aren't very happy about it. Look, that was an attack. We're going to reveal your name. We're CNN, and you said something. You released a gift that we didn't like, and we're going to release your name. That was an attack. That was a threat, a credible threat as well. And CNN, when you troll people, when you attack people, then you will get trolled, and you will get attacked. That's the world we live in. In fact, Senator Ted Cruz, and I made this comment just the other day that, isn't this illegal? Can you not do this sort of threat? Senator Ted Cruz took to Twitter to explain how CNN may have actually committed crimes. One of his tweets, troubling, Cruz tweeted, I assume CNN's lawyers are examining GA 16816, theft by extortion. That's a law. Yeah, he's a lawyer. He's one of those guys. He knows laws. If CNN constructively obtained the gift maker's IP, it is a GA crime if they threaten to disseminate any information tending to subject any person to hatred, contempt, or ridicule. Wow. Okay. I guess so. I guess it is a crime, CNN. Wouldn't it be fun to have some of these people arrested? Another relevant crime law, according to Cruz, is New York Code 135.60. A person is guilty of coercion in the second degree when he induces a person to abstain from engaging in conduct in which he has the legal right to engage by means of instilling a fear with the actor will expose a secret or publicize an asserted fact, whether true or false, tending to subject some person to hatred, contempt, or ridicule. This is a private person conducting his constitutional right of freedom of speech, regardless of how much you don't like what he says, because hate speech is what free speech is. That is what's protected. And if you decide to disseminate his name and do it in such a way and say things whether true or false about this person that could subject them to hatred, contempt, or ridicule, well, guess what? That's a crime as well. So there you go. The criminals. But CNN doesn't care. The left doesn't care. They don't really care about anyone. They don't, especially the people that vote for them. This is the really sad and disgusting part, is if you're on the left, you don't care about the people you claim to care about. In reality, you actually hate them a whole lot because they're beneath you. And the fact that you have to stoop down and beg for the vote of somebody that's beneath you just fills you with rage and hatred. I usually do a pretty good job of taking down Maxine Waters because it's fun. I like to use humor and personal attacks, but Tucker Carlson takes it to a whole new level on Fox News.
Well, since we live in a world, where pro wrestling references are now the very same thing as violent threats, one wonders what to make of remarks that California Congresswoman and progressive hero Maxine Waters recently made about HUD Secretary Ben Carson. During a speech on Saturday in New Orleans, Waters said that when Carson appears before her congressional committee, quote, "I'm going to take his ass apart," Quote, "Carson knows nothing about the mission of HUD," Waters continued. "He doesn't care about people in public housing. He believes that if you are poor, it is your fault. And he doesn't know the difference between an immigrant and a slave," whatever that means. Now, we've mocked Maxine Waters before on this show, but we should take her seriously on this subject. Congresswoman Waters is a confirmed expert on the question of housing, especially her own housing. Consider where she lives. In a 6,000 square foot, $4.3 million mansion in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Los Angeles. Now, how'd she afford a place like that after having spent the last 40 years working in government? We'd hate to speculate. How does she keep getting reelected despite not living in her own congressional district? No clue there either. The district Waters actually represents in Congress has the second highest percentage of African American residents in the state of California. Now, the neighborhood where Waters actually lives is just 6% black, or as she might put it herself, if she didn't live there, it's segregated, like 1950s level segregated. And as we mentioned, it's really, really rich. So how did Maxine Waters pull off a housing coup like that? Who knows? But it almost qualifies her to be HUD secretary.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing, the story of Maxine Waters. She comes from one of the poorest districts, refused to live there, actually lives in one of the richest districts, is quite wealthy herself after being in government on a government salary for 40 years. How did that actually happen? That's the question. And what has she done for her district? What has she done for anybody in reality to get them out of the position that they're in? It's a horrible, horrible story, frankly, and the fact that people keep voting for her is very, very sad. It's a very propagandized group of people, and it's very sad that they keep voting for her. I don't know why, because she's not helping. I mean, here's the thing, though. I really wonder, and wouldn't it be great if somebody could get some behind-the-scenes footage of this? But I'm wondering how often people like Maxine Waters or anyone else who placates to groups of people, how often that they go out and give these big rousing speeches about hatred for Donald Trump and free money and free this and that and the other thing, and they get the crowds whipped up into a frenzy and they know they're going to get their vote. How often does that person like Maxine Waters get off stage filled with contempt, start making fun of the people that were in that crowd? How often does that happen? Cutting them down in a personal way. I bet you it happens almost every time they give a speech. Now, I like to be fair. Actually, I don't, but I'm going to be fair here because, hold on. It's not being fair. It's the fact that most of the GOP is the same as the Democrat Party. They're just people that want power. And Jason Chaffetz, he's getting out of Congress, and I guess there's some reasons why. He's feeling very frustrated about what's going on. Several clips here. He was on Fox News giving an interview. Jason Chaffetz says he's frustrated with the way this whole healthcare thing is going.
Look, Republicans, their deal with America was, if you give us the House of Representatives, we can play defense. If you give us the Senate, we can play a little bit offense. You give us the House and Senate and the presidency, then we can actually get things done. And so here we are 7 months into it, and they haven't passed the bill yet.
No, they haven't passed the bill yet. They haven't even come up with a good bill yet. You would think that after 7 years of promises and claims and several bills that they actually voted on. They had a clean repeal vote that went through the Congress, went through the Senate. Of course, it stopped President Barack Obama. You would think that they would have been ready on day one to make it all happen, slam it shut, and it would have been the easiest thing in the world to fulfill a huge promise to the voters, right? But that's not what they did, and now it's dragging on and on and on and on, and nothing's being done, just like under Barack Obama, while the Republicans are now in control of both houses and the presidency. He goes on to be asked, was there never any plan? Did they never have anything ready to go?
Well, I was first elected when President Obama became the president. And after that health care bill was passed some 50 plus times, we voted to repeal it. But now it's for real, right? That was almost pretend. Now it's for real.
There were no consequences from it.
Yeah, well, I was the chairman, and we were told in November and December that, hey, we're going to front load the schedule into January so that by the time the president is sworn in, and it's President Trump, he will have a bill sitting on his desk. And I can tell you there's a great deal of frustration in both the House and the Senate that there is not yet a bill, because it really feels like they haven't even gotten together and figured out a plan yet.
Well, I'm wondering what the plan that they're trying to figure out is, you see, because I think it's coming down to what I said. There's a lot of Republicans out there, especially old guard, the Paul Ryan type Republicans out there that don't want to get rid of Obamacare. They want to keep a hold of Obamacare. The Obamacare gives them a tremendous amount of control over a sixth of the economy. And beyond that, it gives them a tremendous amount of control over who lives and who dies. Who would want to give up that sort of power? I think the Mitch McConnells of the world and the Paul Ryans of the world and the Republican intelligentsia of the world are just as concerned with maintaining their own power as anybody else, and that's the reason why we haven't got a repeal bill, especially on the first day. If they really cared about their campaign promises and the things they had been telling the people that they would do for 7 years to gain back as much power as they had, if they really cared about that, if they really had any intention of doing the things that they said that they were going to do, it would have been done already. Some say to repeal Obamacare without replacement would be a bad thing. And that's kind of the idea that's going around right now, that we can't get a real repeal replace thing going. So why don't we just repeal and then we'll replace it later? Okay, we'll sit down, talk about it, get with the Democrats, we'll come up with something, we'll replace it later, and then we'll have that fight and try to really create a good health care bill. But to get this whole ball rolling, we have to repeal it now. And that idea has been floated out there. Ben Sass, of course, Rand Paul, that's what they want to do. And it seems like Mr. Chaffetz would go along with that. Why would you want the repeal without the replacement?
Well, I just want to do what's right for America. And what's wrong right now is Obamacare. I mean, how many times do we have to read stories about incredible increases to premiums, deductibles, how many places they don't even have a choice. And so many counties, nearly, I think it's 30% have like one choice in their plan. So it is imploding. Repeal it. And guess what? That will catch the attention of Congress, because Congress is notorious for just working towards deadlines. But Congress is always in session. It's perpetual. And until there's an actual deadline, you won't compel action.
Right. And that's what's going to have happen. If we want a good bill, if we want a bill that is actually going to solve some of the problems or try to solve some of the problems that exist within healthcare, we're going to have to force people to really think about it. And no one really did that with Obamacare, because the idea of Obamacare was not to provide care for people or insure people or make people safer or more healthy. The idea was to so destroy the private insurance system and so destroy people's confidence in their own insurance company and so demonize the private sector that the public at large would open arms, would embrace single-payer health care, and that's essentially what they want. It's bigger government. It's more power. It is the story of the 2000s. Huge leaps of power from the government. One of those big leaps of power happened after 9/11. I don't care about the wars that ensued. Iraq was horrible. We shouldn't have gone. That doesn't matter to me. I don't care about all the money that was spent. All that stuff can be made up, and we can figure that all out. That's all physical stuff in the world that can be fixed. But the philosophy behind the United States is something that is much more difficult to resurrect, and we have trashed our Constitution. And people are willingly trashing the Constitution for this quote-unquote safety, you see. We have no Fourth Amendment anymore. And now, beyond the Fourth Amendment, we have an agency within our government that is on a daily basis assaulting, raping, and violating countless human rights of individuals for one reason and one reason alone. They dared to ask to get on an airplane. And airports and airplanes are such dangerous areas that Americans are now refusing to fight back, and they're just sitting there like a good little prisoner of war. Political prisoner of war. Last night on the Prep Show, I had some comments about, one of those crazy things that goes on with the fast food deals. You go to a McDonald's or wherever you go, and somebody goes nuts and ends up attacking people. Well, there was a story in the news last night about that, and I had a comment. This is from the Prep Show. A couple arrested for beating restaurant owner because takeout chicken was cold. Well, it's supposed to be hot freaking chicken. And, people are getting nuts with their takeout order. Look, all you got to do is cook the bird. I give you money, you cook the bird, you hand it over, we do a little da-da-da, and then the fruit is cold. That's all the stories are about how crazy people went. They went to the McDonald's and the soft serve machine was broken down, but they saw somebody else with soft serve, so they went in there and kicked ass. Or people got their order and there wasn't enough ketchup in there, and so they threw it back at the, well, you know what? Maybe get the freaking order right. What do you think about that? What do you think about just getting it right? I know that people, you're not supposed to attack others. You're not supposed to be violent. I get it. But people are violent already. And by the way, just simply complaining or just simply driving away or saying, I'll never take my business here ever again, will do absolutely dipshit. But if somebody gets a sock in the nose, maybe they'll fry the freaking chicken. That's right. And it's true. And I said that sort of in jest last night, but I'm getting to the point where I think that's actually the reality. People are being pushed too far. What's wrong with the customer asking for the person that is doing a job for them that you're handing money over to for that person to do that job correctly? A mother traveling with a 2-year-old son from Houston to Boston last week says that United Airlines gave her son's seat to a standby passenger, even though she paid nearly $1,000 for that seat. She tried to get some help from a flight attendant. They blew her off, gave her a short answer of saying they were fully she shrugged and walked away. And She thought about protesting, but remembers what happens to people that protest. They get beaten up by security and dragged off the flight, so she decides to do nothing and ended up having to ride her child in her lap, 25-pound child in her lap for the entire distance. Of course, mom had safety concerns. She attempted to put the seatbelt around both her and her child in this little airplane. He was big. Couldn't put him down with the folding table and the whole thing. Very, very bad instance. So in this case, the woman had $1,000 stolen from her. This child was put in physical danger. The airline didn't care, and there's nothing mom could do about it. Nothing whatsoever. I don't even know if she could get off the plane. They would probably arrest her for that. Why is it that we now live in a society where the company that you just paid $1,000 to for the simple act of flying from one place to another, you paid for your seat and you paid for your son's seat, and they decide they're just going to give that seat away and then you have to move. They decide to give that seat away because they want to make money on somebody else. They want to make more money. That's essentially the reason. And in a righteous society, you'd never be able to do that, right? And before 9/11, before the TSA, you'd never be allowed to do that. Somebody would throw a fit and things would change. Can't do that anymore. Because if you protest, even if you're in the right, even if it's a righteous protest, they will literally beat you in your seat. They will put you in the hospital because the government doesn't care. The TSA and airports today are a training ground. I said this a long time. I probably said this 4 or 5 years ago. The TSA is a training ground, right? To train people in the authority and power of a tyrannical government. This is what we can do to you. There's nothing you can say about it. Learn to live with it. And if you can train people to learn to live with it on an airplane, then you can train people to learn to live with it in the rest of society, and then no one will ever want to fight back to gain freedom once again in the country. The TSA and the airports are a training facility for tyranny. By the way, it was against Federal Aviation Administration regulations to ride this child in her lap. Federal Aviation Administration strongly encourages parents to keep their children in their own seat or child restraint system, not in an adult's lap. Quote, your arms aren't capable of holding your child securely, especially during unexpected turbulence, the FAA website states. Plus, United Airlines personal regulations also prohibit children over the age of 2 from sitting on an adult's lap. But we can overlook that if we've got cash to make. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? All right, that's it, my friends. Michael Newman Show, wrapping things up. Thank you so much for joining me. Please go to the website, michaelnewmanproductions.com. From there, you can contact me. Got Newmaniac1, that's my Twitter handle, Facebook, YouTube. Of course, you can send me an email. Just click the contact link. If you want to hear about any of the stories, if you want to read them for yourself, you can get the links to today's stories on the blog section. And, of course, support the show. First, tell everybody about it. When you get the links, please send it to people. Please spread the show. Listen to the show. Tell them something about it they really need to listen to. Just help me get the show out there and grow it as quickly and as much as possible. And if you can feel it in your heart, it would help me out very much so if you would support the show. And you can do that by clicking the support link on the website. And you can do it for as little as $1 a month. It'll make a huge difference to me. Have a great night.
Wow, see